Welcome, everybody, to another fun Zoom school board meeting. There are no actions to report out from closed session. Adjustments to the agenda, Chris.
The only adjustment we have is that from consent, we will be pulling the PAR, the personnel action report, and we'll bring it to you on the 29th.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. Here's our bellies, or hopefully.
There's a flag behind me up here, so.
All face to you.
All right, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of the United States of America,
to the republic
Republic, for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
justice for all.
liberty, and justice for all. We're not trying to sing. All right. It's very nice to start a special recognition of Rosa Duran Vasquez.
Yeah, so I'm looking to see if she's on. I know she was.
Yes.
She is. Okay, good. Oh, hi, Rosa.
And then
and then do we have Chris Miller, Karen?
yes, he is. I'm just
All right.
unmuting him as well.
So Rosa Duran Vasquez is our lone retiree this year. And we can't have a party to celebrate you, Rosa, and we feel bad about that. But we asked Chris as the HJH principal to say a few words about you and just want to convey our thanks and gratitude for the many, many years of service that you've given our community and our children. So thank you. And Chris, if you want to take it over.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to recognize Rosa for her many years of service. She started with HUSD in 1990, so nearly 30 years ago. She's been dedicated to our district, serving at both the elementary and junior high school levels. She's very passionate about bilingual education, especially. I know she was, it pained her to see the dual language immersion program.
Okay, Chris, is that just me or is Chris really breaking up?
I can't hear him.
Chris Miller, you're really breaking up.
Implementing.
Can't hear you.
Can't even hear me. Chris, can you hear me? Chris, can you hear me? You're really breaking up. It sounds like underwater electrical issues.
We lost you at bilingual education, I think.
Yeah, can you, and maybe, yeah.
Oh, is he frozen?
And then you were frozen.
I can hear you.
Oh, man.
No, if everybody mutes, sometimes that works better.
All right. Is it any better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Try it now, Chris.
All right. Any better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Rosa is dedicated to bilingual education, and even when she wasn't able to teach in a dual language setting, she's been instrumental in maintaining multicultural text in her classroom. She's a proud Chicana who continues to make sure students, especially English learners, are not forgotten, and has been a vocal advocate for them during her time. As I said, she infuses her teaching with multicultural text, including text that helps students connect with their Hispanic heritage and take pride in their culture. So Rosa, thank you very much for your years of service and serving students of many different ages, and you will be greatly missed.
Thank you. I have just a little something to present to all of you. And upon my departure for retirement, I'd like to leave you with an assignment in true teacher form. So it's the product of a brainstorm as I reflect upon the end of my teaching career and these troubled times that we're in. So someone on social media wrote, the systems we have work the way they were designed to work. And now we need a system that works for everyone. In this vein, here's my project-based learning idea for the board, administrators, teachers, students, and the community. Begin a practice of asking yourself, what does it mean to be an anti-racist? Design a plan to educate all of your community. Not a one-time deal. People don't learn that way. It needs to be ongoing, structured and unstructured, etc. Educate yourself. Dialogue with others within your specific groups. Don't ask BIPOC, Black or Indigenous people of color, or POC, people of color, to educate you. We have had to educate ourselves and learn how to deal with systemic racism. Now you can be part of the learning process. One section of your assignment is to learn, synthesize, explain the following terms in your own words by either having a dialogue through a presentation to a small group or have a small group present to a large group. Truly understand these terms and be able to explain these words and concepts to a small child and an adult, but be sure you include a visual or an appropriate prop. Here are a few examples of the words or concepts that would be on this list to educate yourself and understand racism and anti-racism. Systemic racism, implicit bias, suppression, colonization, cultural assimilation, tokenism, microaggressions, macroaggressions, white supremacy, white fragility, redlining, Jim Crow laws, abolitionists, harmony, justice, empathy, compassion, human dignity. You will keep a daily journal, every day reflect, think about your actions and identify them. Are they racist or are they anti-racist? What are you reading? What are you watching? Are you talking about racism enough? Design an anti-racist curriculum. What would that look like? Remember, the systems we have work the way they were designed to work. And now we need a system that works for everyone. Create a curriculum, sports team, musical or choir groups, student clubs, awards that reflect the population of the students you are responsible for. Have ongoing seminars or read books on anti-racism. Have speakers, movies, presentations for the students, teachers, staff, admin, board. Teach everyone how to ask questions, how to be a critical thinker. Create a metaphorical blueprint on how to be an anti-racist. Identify racism in the education system, in your local and national governing systems, in our system of laws, in the community, in et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Racism, where is it? How is it hidden? Why is it that all people can't see it? What can you do to create a new system? I also read on social media that being an anti-racist is a full-time job. We need to think of race for the rest of our life, for the rest of our lives. I have thought about race all of my life, since the time I became aware of my surroundings. Let's work to be full-time anti-racists. Let's teach anti-racism. Let's change the system. Let's be an example to our community, to our families, to our students, so that together we can begin the work to end systemic racism and to actually become anti-racists who speak out when there is an injustice. I am hopeful, this much, I am hopeful that we will move towards a society that practices justice for all, for the sake of our children and the sake of our children's children. And that's what I want to leave you with. That is your assignment. And I can't wait to see the result.
Rosa, would you mind emailing that to us? That is beautiful. And I think it's what we need to be. That's exactly what we need to do. I want to thank you though. You know, I had the honor of working with you, and I am just so grateful for my time with you. You always questioned things that didn't make sense. You're such a strong advocate for students and families. And, you know, just being around you, every single interaction with me made me a better person. And I feel so blessed that my children had the benefit of having you as their 6th grade teacher. And I know as a principal that so many parents couldn't wait to have you as their 6th grade teacher, knowing that you were going to be the teacher in immersion. And you just have made such an impact on so many of our students. And beyond being the role model, you know, you are just, we're a gift to this community, are a gift to this community. I just want to thank you for all your service.
Thank
and
you.
all the love.
Thank you so much. And I just, you know, all of this just came to me. I was still thinking like a teacher here being retired, and all these ideas were coming to me. And I said, I'm not going to do a lesson right now, but if I had to, what are some of the things that I would bring in? And so my mind I just started brainstorming all of these things, and it just kind of came together. And I thought, oh, this would be great to present to somebody.
Yes. Well,
thank you for presenting it to us.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's brilliant.
I hope
It
that.
is, Rosa, I don't know you, but it's my hope that we can call on you to help us.
after you get some rest.
Absolutely. Yeah.
After
Take a month off.
after you get used to it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And may we all have a good summer and may everything smoothly change.
Yes.
So take
Yeah.
care.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Rosa.
Rosa.
Enjoy
Congratulations.
time.
Thank you, Rosa.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rosa, also, we also have a gift for you. And so we will be getting in contact with you to see if we can bring it to you or if you'd like to come in to pick it up. We have our beautiful little certificate made for you. And then of course, a special gift. So we just want to make sure you know that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
we can't give it to you in person with everybody.
That's okay. That's okay. It's our time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa.
Thank you, Rosa.
Okay, bye.
All right, that was lovely. Thank you, everyone.
Amazing.
Any public comments on non-agenda items at this point?
I don't, yes, I do have one that just, if anybody else would like to make a public comment, the process is to send a message via chat to me. We do have a public comment from Ever Flores.
Thank you, and I think I just want to say thank you to the board for replying to my email, and I'm just going to take the time to read the email out loud to you guys on the public forum. As one of the very few Latinx faculty members at Hillsborough High School, I think it's time to acknowledge the fact that we can do better for our students, especially our students of color. According to the 2019-1920 LCAT, about 66% of our student population district-wide identify themselves as Latinx, and I believe our students can benefit from the implementation of ethnic studies. I am proposing that the district starts looking at a way to incorporate ethnic studies in all grade levels, not just at the high school, but starting with K-5. The mission of such implementation would be to provide a transformative education that empowers students to critically examine the contributions and experiences of colonially and institutionally underserved communities. Students can consciously and intentionally develop their understanding of community assets and cultural wealth to become agents of positive change who promote equity, empathy, and social justice in society. Furthermore, and I think you know this, studies have shown that student engagement is higher when students can relate to the material. In a study conducted by Stanford University, I believe in 2015, researchers examined the impact of ethnic studies curriculum for struggling 9th grade students who participated in the program in San Francisco high schools from 2010 to 2014. The academic performance of these students identified as being at risk of dropping out was compared with other classmates who weren't enrolled in such classes. The improvements were significant. Attendance jumped by 20 percentage points, grade point average by 1.4 points, and students in ethnic study courses covering discrimination, stereotypes, and social justice movements earned 23 more credits toward graduation. And I think this is key, especially since we've been up in the last 3 or 4 years, in the last 5 years. Overall, the largest gain were found amongst boys and Latinx students in the subject in math and science. And that is also key, especially since we upped our science and math requirements in Hillsborough Unified. The Santa Rosa City Schools, school board, by the way, has already taken a step toward more inclusive curriculum. I think it is time for our school board to start thinking in a more inclusive curriculum in the near future. And I just want to say thank you for listening to comment and for replying to my email as well.
Thank you, Ever.
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 Are there any other comments, Karen, on non-agenda items?
I don't have anything that's come to me through chat. So let me just check my email really quick.
And if something were to trickle in as we're moving forward, just let us know.
Yeah, nothing else. So
Okay. On to item 10, the consent agenda. Are there any questions, or do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the personnel report?
I was just going to make that point. Thank you.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay. All right. So if people do have comments on agenda items coming up, it would be great to submit your comment to Karen now so that we're prepared and ready for you to speak at the time of the topic. On that note, item 11.1, student learning, the elementary discipline guide.
We need Erica and Jeff unmuted.
Erica and Jeff, right? So we need, yeah, I guess we need to unmute them.
sorry, I was trying to share the screen and.
Okay.
I know.
No worries.
I'm kidding.
Diane too, possibly. I don't know if she's going to add
Okay,
in.
so there's Jeff, there's Erica, and Diane. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Perfect. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
All right. I can kick it off, and then Jeff and I, and if you have any questions for Diane too. So what you're looking at, what started, it really came about from some conversations at CGC over the past year, maybe a little bit the year prior as well, having questions about kind of what our discipline process is, K-5. And we've done a lot of work around, as you all know, kind of discipline in our practices as it relates to positive discipline and restorative practices in ACES and PBIS. And so this document we put together to kind of encapsulate everything that we are doing. And it came from, just to give credit, from Petaluma City Schools, was kind of the template that we used, but then really kind of put a lot of thought into stuff that what we're doing here in Healdsburg. And so of course it went through CGC and both of our staff at HES campus and at FMC. We know this is really big. The feedback we got though from both governance councils is that parents want an opportunity to look and see all of the details, but also, and feedback from staff especially was, we can't be it or expect parents to read all of this. So there's a couple pieces that we think are important: the responsibilities of students, parents, teachers, admin, and also the MTSS triangle that kind of summarizes the supports that we have, but then link to this bigger document. But we did think it was important to kind of put it all in here. And then I'll hand it off if Jeff has anything.
Yeah, and I think that when we're thinking about education, we talk about, inclusivity of all of our students, outlining the responsibilities of every adult that's, involved in this, the lives of our students. So teacher, parent, student, administrator, all being on the same page. And I think the biggest part about it is that it does really lend itself to the social emotional needs of our students. And it makes a kind of a clear format that we can all start to share the same language around what does behavior management look like, and more importantly, how are we building the connections with our students so that we can, maintain an understanding of, why behavior is happening or how we can best support it.
Diane, did you have anything that you wanted to add, just from your experience? Because we worked with Diane through this whole process too.
Well, I just wanted to say, this was brought forward probably a year ago, and so Petaluma's used it for quite a while now, and we definitely dialed it down, trust me, from what they had. And what I like about it is when we're asked about the whys or the hows, it's clear. So we had heard from the parents, we need a communication plan. We need to know how and why you would communicate, how and why, what's the justification behind disciplining one way versus another way. And while we answer every possible question, I think a lot of them are answered in this. And it, yes, of course, there needs to be a more parent-friendly version.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I understand. But you know, it's a fine line, right? Where you too little or not enough. You know, some parents will want it all, and some parents will only want a snapshot. So
it is incredibly detailed. And I got a bit confused about the correlation between the pyramid, which I like very much. I love the model, the multi-tiered system, and this to me is sort of the core of it all, right? To me, I don't know, maybe just to me, but wasn't sure how that then corresponded to the minor and major infractions, and then how that then corresponded to the 3 levels of severity. It's not, you know what I mean? As a parent, I wouldn't know how to navigate that. And so I don't know. I mean, I agree more information is generally better. I agree that you should be able to drill down and get into more and more detail as you need. But I am really, it's not, I mean, it's not, I don't know how this would help answer questions if I was a parent. But I know I know you guys reviewed it with the governance council, and that's really important. It's like a really key thing. So I don't really have a suggestion, but it was challenging. One other thing is you have ed code in there that says specifically on the cover it does not apply to K-8 grades, and then it's followed by an elementary matrix. But the elementary matrix doesn't say if is that Healdsburg, is that California? It doesn't really specify where that, I mean, it says it's kind of built on the other one, but that to me is really confusing, because if this is for K6, why is the ed code that says specifically this is not for K8 in there?
So I can answer, or I can respond to that. You know, a lot of this kind of willful defiance and disruption often comes in an elementary campus, but we can't suspend. But we often get questioned about why not suspending. And so I personally thought it was, and we thought it was important to include the language that, you know, that students can't be suspended, but then there's you know, other means of correction of those behaviors. Whereas if that same behavior, you know, at a secondary you could suspend for, we cannot suspend for, you know, defiance or class disruption, but we can, you know, do all these other things. You know, the MTSS, you know, pyramid that's up on the screen right now is really about kind of the supports that we offer all of our students. Well, obviously the tier 1 supports, and kind of just to show and as a guide to show all of the supports that we're providing to all of our students in an effort to minimize, you know, the behavior issues that we may have.
It sounds like maybe when we do make a simpler kind of parent version that could go in a handbook, we can put some narrative around it. I got it because, you know, I always use the comparison. When a student is not reading at grade level, we don't send them home and tell them to read, right? We teach them how to read. And when a student doesn't know how to behave to standards, we shouldn't just send them home and tell them how to figure it out, right? We need to teach them, and that's those other means of corrections, and that's why it's in the MTSS pyramid. And so maybe pulling that out a little bit more simply to tie it in for parents might be a good idea.
The other thing that I would like to see is a monitoring. Like, how are we monitoring how many students are being sent into the office? Who's being sent into the office, so that we can look? Is it one specific area in the school where there's kids that are getting into trouble more regularly? Is it a group of students? Is it, so I think that there needs to be some monitoring and analysis of our data built into this, so that we can modify it and or provide whatever resources we need to support those areas that are challenging our students.
Yeah, and we do that whether it's through, actual referrals that get entered into Aries, or we have a tracking system for our, when students do reflection sheets as part of our, the restorative process, we have a tracking system for those as well. It includes kind of where the occurrence happened, if it was on the playground or in the classroom, et cetera. So
I think this is just an opportunity, though, that if it gets written, if it's documented, it just, regardless of who comes in later in the future, it's something that this is how we run our program. We're constantly looking at data and analyzing it. So if it could be embedded, I mean, it would be great.
Maybe something under the responsibilities of administrators to, monitoring and analyzing.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Just disciplinary things.
Data. Yeah.
So that you can really be proactive about, where do we need help? Where do we need more training? What do we need, right? I do like the responsibility pages very much.
Yeah, those were very clear. I thought those were great.
Yeah. I like the way that was laid out.
Yes, I agree.
And on those, I have a question, Principal McGuire. I love the responsibilities pages. My question, though, is, so what is the plan? What's the process? What's the process for implementation, for monitoring, for assistance, with teachers, with administrators, or whomever? It's a nice document. I mean, I truly mean that. And in reference to President Del Rey's question about, it says we can't do this for K-8, there will be parents that say, why don't you suspend him? And we can't, number one. So we have all these other things we do. But back to the responsibilities, my question, and the whole document, what is the plan? What is the process that, the timeline, if you will, for implementation to make sure that all the administrators, all the teachers, and inform the parents as well?
So I can start, and then if you want to jump in. I mean, I think a lot of the, in terms of the responsibilities of the students, these are the things, and I know there's teachers on the call right now would say that in a normal school year, I'm not going to speak about this coming fall because it'll look a little bit different. Teachers are spending the first few weeks teaching the routines. We go over the school rules. These are them, be safe, be respectful, be responsible, and kind of enumerating them as they are here. Is what the teachers spend a lot of time doing. And I say they do it in the beginning of the year, but of course they're doing it throughout the year. Our plan was to, create a shortened kind of Cliff Notes version of this and with a link to the whole document and get it to parents at the beginning of the school year. And the rest of it, I mean, again, to be honest, this was putting it all together, but there's not really new procedures that we are implementing. We have implemented so many new policies, procedures, ways of handling discipline, and from a more, much more restorative approach over the last few years, that this is just, putting it all into writing. Jeff, if you want to.
Yeah, it's clearly outlining kind of what the responsibility is so that folks can understand both, from the student on up, have a better understanding of what's expected of them. Therefore, the behaviors then will be a bit more aligned to what we're trying to accomplish at school. I like the MTSS, the triangle, because it kind of shows the different tiers of intervention. And that's what this is mainly about. It's helping students understand and teaching students how to kind of be in a social setting, how to treat one another, what it looks like to, hold a conversation, to play with one another. So it definitely kind of tries to hit the whole child. And part of that is definitely outlining what it looks like, because we can't suspend. So that kind of information is just there and it could be spelled out a little bit better for families as to why that's in there, but it's just more of kind of like a more holistic understanding of what it is to be at school.
Well, I guess part of my question is, I hear what you're saying, and I know a lot of this is already, probably most of 90% of this is in practice. But to ensure that if I walk in as a new teacher, I'm a new I'll be a second grade teacher. You wouldn't want me to do that, but anyhow. And how would I know? I mean, I get this big document. How would I know? Tell me as a board member how this guy Mike would be brought up to speed, if you will, be monitored, if you will, be assisted as he's trying to do, let's say, discipline or means of correction with his students.
Well,
How do you assist me? How do you help me out?
Yeah, well, I would take you as a second grade teacher any day, Mike. So
Okay.
starting in,
Careful what you ask for.
yeah, and I think that that would be, you know, as each of our sites have, you know, a number of years of experience, you know, whether it be a first-year teacher or a 22-year teacher or more, we really rely on our teams to help us out with that. So what does it look like? You know, oh man, I'm having a really difficult time with this student. What do you think I should do? So that would be step one. But like you're saying, how could I understand this document a little bit more? It would be that time with myself or with Erica and a teacher that would be at her site. It would be, you know, that teamwork that you know we're so good at to make sure that we do fully understand it, so that it doesn't just get put on a binder and live on a shelf.
Right. I mean,
I think
I
was just going to say, sorry.
No, please go ahead, Erica.
I was just going to say, I think in general, it's just like the onboarding we have to do with every, you know, with a new staff person or curriculum. And this is how we do, you know, this is how you deal with referrals, this is what lunchtime duty looks like. This is what it means to be on your duty. And, you know, and a lot of that happens from principals, but a lot of it is, you know, colleague to colleague. You know, this year, the implementation of Buddy, I'm not going to call it, I don't remember exactly what it was called, but the Buddy system where, you know, a veteran teacher was paired with a new teacher, I think was really successful. I saw those conversations happening a lot. And that's where, you know, again, a lot of those, you know, I have a student doing this. Do I send them to the principal's office? You know, so it even gets deeper, I think, in those colleague to colleague conversations.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I was just looking at page 10, which I really like, because as an experienced teacher, I might forget because I might, you know, I might have my little 3 or 4 things that I tend to do, but to be reminded that that's there, that there's all these other tools that I really appreciate. And again, part of me wants to say, let's remember to remind all of us that, hey, there's other things you can do. Here's a couple, check out page 10, if you will.
Yeah,
anyhow,
right.
Thank you. I appreciate
love
it.
that it started practices.
Right.
I just want to say one more thing, which might sort of explain the levels of severity. You know, prior to this document, as a new teacher, you'd be left to sort of figure it out on your own.
Right.
And without a tool, this may not be a perfect tool, but it's part of a toolbox, if you will, you know, because of course they need to understand more about how we do restorative practices unless they've had previous training. What does a trauma-informed classroom look like? Well, it incorporates many of these strategies, but all of that is in tandem. But the reason why there's a severity level 1, 2, and 3 is there are some things that would just jump right to a severity level 3. You know, we've had some infractions. You would not go through the process.
Right.
And so a lot of this is explaining to families why a severity level 3 would get this treatment, why a severity level 1 may get this treatment. Do you follow me? I mean,
yeah, no, I get it. That,
it's
I appreciate
hard.
it.
Yeah,
And again,
it's hard
just
to have a
coming in
perfect doc.
But you know, and again, my thinking is, it's a good document. It's a useful document, and I think it's, how do I say this nicely, that in education we tend to follow a path, and we forget that there are other paths that we can take. And part of what I'm saying is I'm hoping, and I, knowing these 2 principles, I'm sure it happens. I just want to make it out there that we come back to this and say, hey, you've been doing this, this, and this. Let's back to page 10. We can do these things, or it's really bad. We need to go right to level 3, whatever. But to have this tool is great. My question initial was, I want to ensure that we can, I guess, you know, is there a process to review this on a periodic basis in some form? And I don't want to tell you how or what, but just because things like this are really great. We read them, we put them on the shelf, and then we kind of end up picking and choosing, and then we tend to and I'm using me as an example, might tend to use, a half a dozen of these and quite honestly forget that there are others. So I just want to make sure that somehow we as teachers and, and parents are apprised of this as well, that these are the kinds of things that can happen, and it also helps students to understand it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for doing this work because it's super important. And like I said, I think the more we document our practices, I think it's more likely to stick and to continue. So I just want to thank you all for taking the time to, we know you have a lot on your plates, especially right now, but to take the time to do this, I think was really critical. So thank you.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
And I really like the consistency through K through 5. So no surprises. It doesn't change when you hit 3rd grade. These are the expectations, and theoretically beyond grade 5. So there you go.
We hope so one day.
You guys did a very thoughtful job. One follow-up question is, this would be available for parents. Will it be handed out? I know down the road, because you're going to have a simplified version to link to this major document. And will it also be available in Spanish?
Yes, of course. We have not translated it yet because we were waiting to go through this process, and we knew we'd have the summer to do that. So yes, it will be translated. The Cliff Notes version will be translated. Our thought in the regular world is that we would send, the short version home in a Friday folder, and then, with a link to, where to find it online, and then going in our electronic newsletter as well.
Perfect.
With and actually I think it came from one of our governance councils with a request that, if it goes home in Friday folders, that there is a, signature back from a parent.
Sign it, yeah.
Understand, again, with that shorter version.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other
Very
questions
nice.
or comments?
I had
No,
one more
compliment.
quick question. So if someone wanted to, I don't know how else to put this, lodge a complaint. Do you think that the information in this document helps them understand how to do that?
You mean a formal complaint or just
Yeah.
a complaint about a?
So is there anything that guides a parent? So here's what our discipline policy is. Is there anything that we provide parents if they have a concern, or is it just they just know to take it to their teacher or know to take it to the principal? Do you understand what I'm saying? The question
We
I'm
get our
asking.
uniform complaint procedure every year.
But I'm wondering though, Chris, I think Jamie brings up a really good point, because I know as a principal, I often would get parents come straight to me, and it would be nice to have like a flow chart where parents first go to the teacher and then to the principal, and then to the,
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Maybe that could be in the
so we don't have
responsibilities
to
of
get to the level of a formal complaint,
Right.
Yeah.
I just think that if you're going to give maybe a shortened version of or like the Cliff Notes version, here's the Cliff Notes version of here's our discipline policy. But in the event that you experience a situation that you would like to have investigated, however you want to put it, here would be those steps. I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying please bring us all your complaints, but we know that there are complaints, and I think parents need to understand that we know that there are issues. So when you have an issue, proactive, here's what you do.
Right, and start with the lowest.
maybe
level.
under that responsibilities of parents page, right? Here's courses about if you have concerns or questions.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd make it really clear because
versus, oh yeah, there's a complaint thing somewhere else. Go find that form.
Right. Come back when you have that form. No, I know you'd never do that. I'm just kidding.
No, we would not.
But I think that would be helpful.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Good work, guys.
Yeah. Very, very thorough.
You are the two to put this together. Two most compassionate people. And Diane. She's pretty compassionate too, for the most part.
Yeah, Dean.
If you get me on a good day.
Okay, any comments or questions?
I'm wondering about one thing. I'm thinking of an incident that took place in kindergarten several years ago now. If you have an incident that is a really traumatic incident, you know what I'm talking about, Chris. Do you expect the parent to go to the teacher first, or just to inform the teacher that you're going to the principal?
I mean, we went to the parents with that. Yeah, no, that's
Mhm.
a whole different thing.
Well, because I was looking at that pyramid and I'm thinking there are situations that come up.
Right, there's outlier situations.
Okay.
I also, I mean, I think if I can, I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Yes, please.
I mean, my take always is a parent can always come to me to ask like about a discipline issue, and it might be, but it also is important for the parent to know that I might say, you know, you need to talk to the teacher about that first.
Right.
I am always like, they have so many different phone calls, and which teacher do I call, and how do I get them there in their classroom? So like, teachers should always know, or parents, that they can come to me, and I will say, you know, please.
You'll direct somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Unless, and then I could be the gatekeeper to know, like, oh, wow, no, I'm going to handle that directly because it was.
And Chris is right. These are outlier situations. But when I was reading that pyramid, I didn't see where you fit those outlier situations in to the pyramid. And so it was just a personal question.
Yeah.
We do
I mean,
have.
you just raise a big stink. Go to Chris.
And to me, the
Whatever.
pyramid is more about sort of our practices versus a behavioral issue is more into the severity lists and things. But yeah, it's
It's a summary.
all the principle.
Yeah. I thought it was just
Perfect.
very refreshing. I'm really glad that your site councils helped bring this forward.
Yes, definitely.
I really appreciate it, and it's been missing for a long time.
Great.
It's great.
So are we to approve this? Is this official?
This is a first read.
We have
First read, thank you.
We do have one public comment on this item. Okay. Rose McAllister, and I need to just unmute her.
Going by an alias.
That's why I
Her
can't.
picture with, she has sunglasses on.
She's under Rose.
Chubby.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Kabath?
There.
Gabea is my
Gabeah.
maiden name.
There you go.
And I was a lot younger and pre-kids in that picture. I should always use that one.
You've been Zooming for years, Rose, clearly.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you guys so much for kind of raising this up from the CGC level to address it so thoroughly. And we really appreciate it. And I guess I just wanted to point out, because I didn't hear a lot of this in the conversation, that the genesis of this discussion came from many, many, many instances of parents complaining about behavior not being addressed in ways that they thought were adequate to make the classroom environment safe and joyful for the majority of children in those individual classrooms over the course of multiple years. And so I guess I just want to point that out, that I feel like, you know, this document is one piece in what needs to be, you know, a cultural shift, which I hear a lot of commitment to that shift. But, you know, that all of the students in our classrooms really need to feel like things are in order for them to learn and be able to arrive at school and, you know, and ready to learn and in a safe, comfortable, happy place to do that. And I would lump the teachers in with that as well, that the kind of chaos that was coming from disciplinary situations was really enough to really have all of us on the governing council feel there was a desperate need for this conversation and for action. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose, for the context. Thank you.
So,
Okay, so this is a first read or a discussion, and are we going to bring this up at the end of June at the next meeting, or will this be something?
We'll bring it back on the 29th.
Thank you. All right.
Uh,
Any other comments? We're good, ready to move on to 11, to school business, the board policy related to search and seizure, which just sounds very pleasant.
Yeah. So you may recall that there has been some questions from some stakeholders in the community around the use of breathalyzers at the high school. And I can tell you it's a longstanding policy and probably every high school in the state to use breathalyzers. It's a very common practice, actually. However, in my meeting with folks, it was really readily apparent that there was some confusion about, can we do this and should we be doing it and why we use them, et cetera, et cetera. And so at the behest of some of the parents, we're bringing forward, actually today will be the first of 2 policy changes. This one is in our search and seizure policy, and BP 5145.12, and it just has explicit language about the potential use of breathalyzers. And we're going to add this same language into our student handbooks so that kids know that it potentially could happen, because it really was a surprise to some of the students and parents who had encountered it. And so we want to make sure that it is known and it's public. We were not outside of any legal practices in terms of being able to use breathalyzers. It is actually readily covered legally through just talking about search and seizure, but it wasn't explicitly transparent. And so we wanted to be more transparent with our stakeholders. So we have this policy addition where it just says simply, school officials may also conduct a search of any student who, based upon reasonable suspicion, is believed to be under the influence of alcohol or other illegal drugs. Such a search may include the use of alcohol or drug sensing devices or chemical tests, i.e. a breathalyzer. We do actually have little test strips that we use with vapes too. So when you get a vaping device, you don't always know what they're actually, the substance is in the vaping device. And so it's like it's like how you test the pH of your spa or pool. It's just a little strip and it can tell you if it has cannabis or nicotine in it. Anyway, so this would call it out a little more clearly. And then the second policy change that I'm going to be working with Principal Halliday at the high school is just setting some parameters around what constitutes reasonable suspicion and confirming reasonable suspicion before we move into actually using a breathalyzer. Just having some easy, concrete steps that need to be followed so that you don't go quickly to breathalyze, if that makes sense. So, so this is just...
And those processes will be outlined in that AR, the associate.
AR, yeah, so that'll come, we'll probably bring that to you in August. Yeah.
And one of the comments that the parents were concerned about was not being notified before their child was.
Right.
Yeah, that's a different issue, honestly. And so,
well, I'm just wondering if you thought about it, because I didn't think about it.
There's no legal requirement, so just know that ahead of time. And B, I don't have a problem notifying parents if we have time. Oftentimes when there is an alcohol related issue, there is a potential health issue going on, or we're actually trying to figure out who's drunk, and there's multiple students who are under the influence, right? And so we're chasing it, and time is of the essence. And so we don't always have time to be able to do that. I can tell you just an anecdotal story from when I was an administrator in a high school in another district, where I had a student who presented at 9 a.m. and was intoxicated, but was kind of in the goofy stage. But I found very quickly the container that had alcohol and what was missing, and deduced from that he was in imminent danger and called an ambulance. And by the time the ambulance was there, 6 minutes later, he was passed out on a table, right? So we don't always have the luxury of stopping to call the parents, because we're really trying to make sure the student's okay, or we're trying to figure out multiple students who may be in danger. And so we do definitely need to notify parents in a timely manner, but just it's not always possible before. So
so do we need to, not in the board policy, but in the AR, do we need to
we'll put
clarify that parents will be notified in a timely manner?
Yeah.
It actually says that in the BP here, just below the paragraph in red. The principal or designee shall notify the parent guardian of a student subjected to an individualized search as soon as possible after the search. Right. And that is not changed. That's always the way it's been.
Correct.
So then we just need to make sure the parents know that.
Yes.
But I think too, the point is, and I don't know if it needs to be in here, is that they feel they should be notified. And I understand what you're saying, Superintendent Van den Heuvel, having been there. But a lot of parents think you have, before you do anything to my kid, you've got to ask me because he's under 18. It's like, well, no, we don't.
No, and we can talk to parents about that. And that'd be something actually that would be wise to add to the handbook too, right?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
And I would like
Yes.
The equity, the administrative reg to make sure it has an equity lens, because it really tugged at my heartstrings when the family felt like they were singled out. Like not all of the students were searched, and in that process. And so how are we doing that practice? And I really feel strongly that it needs to be more than one person that is initiating that response, because I think we need to do whatever we can to alleviate that perception.
The first step in the admin reg that we're going to write is that an administrator, so the way it works is a staff person, any adult who finds some piece of evidence that could be constituted as reasonable suspicion can kind of trigger the beginning of the process, right? And they don't take it lightly at all. And so when that happens, the office is notified. We usually get the student from the classroom. And at that point in time, what I'm going to write very explicitly is the administrator needs to be present and confirm that reasonable suspicion, right? So that it's not, because things happen, weird things can happen, and a teacher thinks something, or a campus supervisor or what. But when I was an administrator and students were allegedly under the influence of anything, I would meet with them, and you can tell pretty quickly whether you think they are, right? And there's different, just simple conversation. You can do some tricks about closing your eyes and counting and things like that to see how in tune with the actual time they are. So in the judgment of an administrator, is it constituted reasonable suspicion? Can they confirm that? And then you go forward with a search or a breathalyzer or whatever it is. So, so that will be part of the administrative reg, just to confirm the reasonable suspicion.
And I
have one.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just a quick comment on the wording. You say school officials may also. I would eliminate the word also. I don't think it has to be an also. It's just they may conduct a search.
Oh, in the new wording?
In the new wording, yeah.
Okay.
And it sounds like, oh, and we can also do this. It's like, no, we can do this. We may do this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I understand that the school is not by law held accountable to have to call the parents. But in the two cases that we heard from, that I remember as public comments, neither one of those students tested positive. So it would lead me to believe that it was not a situation that was life or death. That why wouldn't you take the time, if you can, why wouldn't you take the time, just out of courtesy, I guess, more than anything, to call a parent and say, hey, we have Jamie in the office, and this is why we have her there, and we're going to breathalyze her. I want to let you know that I have suspicion, credible suspicion. Why wouldn't you do that?
There's a number of reasons why. You don't know what you're dealing with, right? If the administrator does think there's reasonable suspicion, you don't know that it's life or death. You don't know if there's multiple kids involved or not. And oftentimes when you have a student blow a positive on a breathalyzer, you get more information as a result, right? They're more willing to share, okay, yeah, I did this and we were drinking down at the 7-Eleven before school or whatever it is. I'm
not saying you're asking for permission. I'm just saying you're letting them know that this is. The other
piece of it is, I'll tell you, as a seasoned administrator, oftentimes parents will run interference for their kids, and it will impede an investigation that potentially has other kids in harm's way. And that's probably the biggest issue. Is it's not about a punitive approach where we're trying to get kids in trouble. It's us actually making sure kids are safe at school. And so us being able to conduct that investigation in a timely and thorough manner. And we can't always get parents on the phone, right? I mean, that's another impediment. Quite often when you call, you're leaving a voicemail. So I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I don't have my notes of when they were called. I know they were not called before, and it's not our practice to call before typically for those reasons. So.
But they were called after? They
were, yeah. I don't know that the conversation happened right away. I think there were some voicemails, and one of them felt like they were called a little late. And we've talked about that, but they were notified. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I don't think either one of them denied being notified. I mean, but obviously they were. Well,
they were very surprised. Yeah.
Well, I think they felt singled out too in some cases.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. I definitely gathered that as well.
Yeah. And I think given kind of our situation right now and what we just saw at the plaza, I think we really need to be aware of those sentiments and take that into account.
Right. No, that's why we're here making this change. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it, Chris.
Yep.
And is this an action or is this first read?
The discussion, we'll bring it on consent probably next time as a policy change. And then look for the AR in August. I need time to sit down with Bill and craft it, but it'll be fairly simple, like 4 or 5 steps when a breathalyzer is going to be used or a search conducted. So
I think we have,
or even when somebody is suspected. I mean, I think there needs to be criteria around what is bringing up the suspicion.
yeah,
I mean, right? We start at that point, and then we look at what are the steps then that we take.
right.
And it's a consistent use of that criteria.
Mm-hmm.
we have one public comment on this item, and it is from Ever Flores.
In terms of keeping the equity lens, like Trustee Romo Flores said, I think it's important that all students are treated equally. For instance, at a graduation ceremony a couple years back, I could smell the alcohol on a student's breath, and I reported that, and nothing happened to the student. And I could see why certain families are upset and why they feel targeted, especially when faculty report stuff like this to our higher ups. So, you know, I wasn't gonna say something like this at this juncture, but I was hearing the mother's concern last time, and it really touched me because I have a different sort of approach to certain students. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind, that this policy should be, you know, applied to everyone, regardless of your background, you know, your socioeconomic background and your ethnic background. So I just want to say that. Okay.
Agreed. Thank you, Ever.
Well, and I'm curious too, that does bring me to the point, do we ever, I mean, obviously we have data about students that have been singled out for these things. Is there a disparity?
It's not actually, we have to change how we input the data. So there's not a data tab that says breathalyzer. So there's narrative that's put in that it was used. And so that's another change that we're going to be doing as a result, so we can track more carefully who's breathalyzed and why.
I think that's super important. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah,
very much.
Because it might be very indicative of our population. It might swing one way or the other. It might swing one gender or the other. I do think it's important to know that. Yeah. So we can honestly assess, right? If we want to think about how are we looking at equality, right? So this would be a question. This is that's my thought. Like, okay, well, what is the data telling us?
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely. And that's why, again, I think the AR needs to be very explicit in what are the signs, what are the signals, they're applied equally, right? It starts at who are you suspecting and why.
Great. Thanks, Ever.
All right, there is not
Thank you.
any other comment on this item.
Okay, moving on to 11-2B, administrative regulation, claims and actions against the district.
Yeah, so this one is a change. It seems sort of frivolous, but it actually has a large price tag if we didn't take the stance, to neighboring fences. And so, as you are aware, as the board, we've had a number of neighbors at various campuses decide to build a fence that borders our property, and then turn around and ask us to pay for half of it, sometimes notifying us, sometimes not, in a timely manner. And so we really want to be clear as a district that, you know, should a fence present a real security issue, or be in the best interest of our students for a safety reason, you know, by all means, we will probably partner with you on building that. But for instance, at the high school, we have a lot of fences that border the parking lot. We have no interest as a district in those fences existing. We don't have students going in, you know, to that side of the campus at all. And so that would be an example of a fence that we would not be spending money on. And what it really does is assure that our dollars are going towards instruction and student safety, and not towards, you know, a neighbor's project to beautify their home. So we have added claims regarding shared construction costs specifically to this board policy, where it says the district shall not bear any responsibility or sharing costs for the construction of fencing properties adjacent to district properties. District funds should only be allotted to construction projects that have clear benefits to the district's educational mission. Thus, the superintendent or designee may approve of shared costs when the fencing in question presents a clear safety hazard or affects the security of students and school operations. So one, you know, the one that I think is clear is HES. It's the playground, right? Residential fences border the playground. And we actually probably have an interest in not having transparent residential fences there where they're chain link, because it just lends more privacy for our youngest kids. So that might be an area where we would consider sharing costs. But like I said, in the high school parking lot or behind the pool where there's already a chain link fence, we don't have an interest necessarily in sharing in the cost of that residential fencing. And there's no legal requirement to do so. So any questions from the board?
I have a quick question. It talks about fencing. What if I wanted to put up a wall and have you share the cost?
A wall.
I'm just saying, you're limited to fencing.
We could put wall/fence or something like that, or any barrier. Yeah.
Barrier maybe.
That's a great idea.
Barrier is probably,
Yeah.
because I could put a hedge up that I want you to help, you know, and maintain or whatever. So that's, I'm thinking expand it as opposed to just fencing.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good idea. But I'm glad that we're spelling this out,
Yeah.
I agree.
because otherwise I think that we're going to get even more claims.
Well, it's uncanny how many neighbors just assume we're going to do it, and they build the fence and then send a bill. And it's, you know, you wouldn't do that to your neighbor, and it's not fair to do to a public entity. And frankly, we're here to serve our kids. And so we need to make sure we have our funds directed in that manner. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will that come back on consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns?
Yes.
Okay. So moving on, we are at reports. Shall we start with the HEF report? Do we have anyone from HEF? Sally there?
No, Sally.
No, Sally. No one else from HEF? Okay.
And we'll go to
HADA report. Ever, do you?
Yeah, just briefly, not really a big report. We're just looking forward to meet with the district to start discussing the new school year. As you may already know, next year looks very uncertain. It looks like the State Department and SCO sent out 3 different ideas of what it might look like. We still don't know. Each side is discussing those with their administrators. There's a committee. I won't tell you who they are yet because they don't know. I'm gonna have to email who's in that committee that will meet at the district level with Chris Van Hubel and probably some of his team members to start discussing an MOU of what that will look like in terms of next year. And just to give you an idea as to where we're going with this, it looks like we are going to end up with 2 very separate and fundamentally different language or MOUs, one for elementary and the other one for secondary. Some of the things I'm hearing from our members is that it varies by side to side, and I can't imagine how Santa Rosa City Schools is doing this with, you know, so many schools in their district. We only have 4, and there are a lot of differences in those 4 schools. So, and then our job at the district level will be to come up with something that is inclusive and that will work for the majority of our students and teachers. I'm looking forward to that. Actually, I'm not looking forward to that because I'm sure Chris and I are going to spend a lot of time negotiating back and forth as to what that language will look like. So I just want to say thank you to the district. Thank you to the teachers who stepped up to talk to their administrators as to what it might look like for next year. And we're still working on it. So that's my report for tonight.
Thank you, Ever.
Thank you, Ever. We do not have our student trustee, although I did pass him at the park the other day and said hi and congratulations on his graduation and all that. Anyway, the Board of Trustees I'm going to start with a statement, if that's okay, with my co-trustees, my fellow trustees, and then people can add other comments at this part of the meeting. Due to the Brown Act limiting the board's ability to have a conversation on a non-agenda item, Vice President Romo Flores and I have a comment to share. HUSD staff, including the superintendent, all the principals, and most of the school board attended the Racism and Discrimination art installation last Thursday in the plaza. I read all the comments, and Vice President Romo Flores was sent pictures of the cards since she was still home recovering from her surgery. We were especially impacted by the experiences of young people of color in our schools. We are heartened by the fact that so many young people are finding their voices in this movement, and we encourage them and others to continue to advocate for change. We as a board are dedicated to priorities that support creating a culture district-wide where all staff and students are safe, respected, and supported academically to thrive. We are requesting that topics about equity and school culture become a regular part of monthly board meetings. Focus on how each campus and the district overall are addressing these issues both inside and outside the classroom. Thank you. Sincerely, myself and Trustee Romo Flores.
Any other trustee reports?
I just want to commend, in addition to that, I just want to commend our former HHS students, Lupe Lopez and Cristal Perez, for their leadership in organizing that event. And as a result of their efforts and their work and the kind of attention that it got, Windsor is now having a similar forum on Friday, June 19th, where they're inviting their community to discuss the same issues. And so I just want to commend them for their leadership and also, commend our teachers for everything that they did to support Lupe and Cristal to be these leaders in our community.
Absolutely.
Oh, and one more thing, I wanted to let you all know that if you're interested in listening to a student support circle, the topic is going to be institutional racism and implicit bias. It's hosted by our state superintendent, Tony Thurmond, in partnership with the National Equity Project, and that's going to be tomorrow from 4 o'clock to, I believe, 5:30. It's going to be on Facebook Live, so if you go onto the CDE's Facebook page, you can watch it there. And they're really encouraging middle school and high school students to log on and participate. So it would be interesting just to kind of hear what's going on around our state.
Mm-hmm. If there's a Facebook post about that, can you share it with the Healdsburg High School and Healdsburg High Facebook groups? If we can just start to push the info out on that, sounds fascinating.
I would like to make a comment if I would. First of all, I applaud our president and vice president for the letter and the comments that you read there, President Del Rey, but also the fact that you are putting on the agenda, on every future agenda, this discussion of racism and anti-racism, that we can have an open and forthright discussion. I look forward to it. It will be uncomfortable, but I think it's much needed. And again, I applaud you for doing that. Thank you.
I ditto. I think that we find ourselves in the school system really trying to get behind a lot of different things that have been maybe not done as well as they could have been. And I really appreciate the work that the board's done over the last couple of years with the National Equity Project, and now moving forward, just keeping that rolling with maybe a different bit of a lens shift, but always looking for the next way to better support our students. So I really appreciate that proactive approach. It's important. We need to know, and we need to make the changes. So thank you.
I think it might be a really nice thing for us to take Rosa Vasquez Duran's PBL and
love that.
use that as a framework for us to go forward.
I agree, Judy.
What a teaching legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make a comment also. I can applaud the board members, but also our administration and our teachers. You know, the work is ongoing. It's difficult. And our superintendent and our principals have been leaders in this. But too, our teachers and our classified staff are participating and are an integral part of this. And it's not just about the board, but it's certainly about all the members of our team, and most importantly, our students. So I just
Absolutely.
thank them all.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for making that point.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments, I don't think we need to take a break. This is one.
Real quick, I just want to, I don't know if anybody is here from CSEA to make
Oh, yes, thank you.
a report, but
Oh, yeah.
if they are, they can message me and then we will be able to have time.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay. No?
No message.
All right, so let's move on to our last two topics. Personnel, food service department reorganization. And I believe this is Francesca, right, Franny? Yep.
It is. Let me, there she is.
Thank you. Yes, so you have before you basically as part of a reorganization of the job classifications in the food service department with a lot of work by Debbie Odetto and Erica Mendoza. We are bringing forward a plan and new job descriptions that will provide a better structure, you know, based on duties, but also a way for there to be more of a career path in food services. So, you know, that someone is, you know, maybe they come in starting out as a food service 1 and they can work their way up to a food service 2 or 3. So gives them a little better opportunity in terms of salary advancement. That's an area they really like to work in. And the food service assistant 3 position, as it notes there, basically is combining duties that were previously done by our office assistant, Tracy Azevedo, in food service. We're kind of morphing that position of office assistant into a food service assistant 3, which is a higher classification, and enables her to do some of more of the hands-on working closely with Erica as kind of like her right arm, I guess. And she was previously part office assistant 5 hours and part just regular food service assistant 3 hours, just for some clarification there.
And now it just officially melds them together.
Exactly, and just puts her in one classification that's at a higher range, so it's, you know, it's a great opportunity for her too.
Good.
I always appreciate looking strategically at managerial forms of advancement. I think that's always a really important thing to have so that people the next step to go to. So that's always good.
For sure.
Any questions? Concerns? No?
I like it.
Oops, sorry, go ahead.
All right, great.
It's good.
And will this come back as consent next month?
Yes, it'll come back on consent, and we'll have each of the job descriptions separately on consent, so you can see them each.
All right. Okay, great. And 11.3B, elimination reduction of classified services.
All right, so not my favorite item, but it is a resolution for you to approve the elimination of 3 part-time positions. The second listed item, I'll jump to that first because we just talked about it. It's basically just the elimination of the food service office assistant because we're morphing that into this new other classification. Then looking at the item 1, the district driver bus aid, That is a part-time position wherein an employee had been riding actually on a bus with a special needs student who has they actually left our district. I believe they may have left before the school year even ended, like before spring break or something, or at spring break. So that was something that we were going to have to bring as an elimination one way or another. And then the paraprofessional one item is obviously we're having one less kindergarten classroom, so there's one less need of a para at kindergarten. And that was actually a vacant position, so there's no one impacted by that. That's kind of the skinny on that.
Okay. Any questions, concerns? No? So we'll do I need a motion.
And it's a resolution. So moved.
Second.
And this is a resolution. This is the first thing we voted on all night. That's why I do now. That was, yeah, okay. All right, Karen, please.
All right. Trustee Potmissel,
Aye.
Trustee Romo Flores,
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez,
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey,
Aye.
and Trustee Kiff.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's about it. I don't think we have a reason to recess to closed session, correct?
Nope.
And that is like, without even trying, a very short board meeting.
Our next regular session, or our next June regular board meeting is on the 29th at 3:00 for anybody interested, and we'll have our budget for that one. So we'll see everybody.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
You said 3:00?
And we should have our property taxes by then, right?
No, we will not have our property taxes.
Yeah, we'll have a better read on our
Budget.
on the budget overall. Yes. Okay.
Hopefully.
Chris, that one's at 3, or is that one a
Yeah,
regular?
Karen, is that right? 3:00? Yeah.
3 o'clock.
Yes.
The
So
29th.
we'll be closed 3 p.m. 4 o'clock would be open.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all of those of you who Zoomed with us, and everybody stay safe.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye from the mountains.
Bye.
Bye from the
See
mountains.
you, Araceli.
Yeah, enjoy.
Good to see you too.